Xenomorph queens do not need a male to reproduce, as their overmorphs do not need to be fertilized. So what is a Xenomorph king? And if it exists, what would its place be within the Hive? The idea of a king was first explored in the unused draft of Alien 3 by Vincent Ward in 1990. No concept art is available, unfortunately, but it was noted that the new Xeno class would be able to blend into its surroundings by altering its color and texture. They could spit acid on their prey, and were even able to implant chest bursters directly into a host, something we'd see later with the Praetorian Predalien of AVP-R. Our first true look at the Xenomorph King would appear on toy shelves in 1992 from Kenner, with its deluxe alien leader class figure. Its true size is difficult to scale, as all of the alien figures, even the Queen outside of the deluxe Hive version, were around the same size. It does, however, have a build unlike any other of its kind. The hands are enlarged with long thin fingers, its chest is bulked up a bit, and its head is really unique, as it has a queen-like crown, except it's split into two parts, where it can then slam shut, allowing it to soak its prey in acid at close range. A more official take on the king would arrive a year later in Dark Horse's Rogue, a comic series and novel. Going by many titles like the Usurper, the Chimera, and the Monarch of the New, the Rogue was actually a human Xenomorph hybrid created by Ernst Kleist for Project Chimera. His goal was to make a queen alien variant that could be controlled and thusly be used to control other aliens. But his attempts were unsuccessful, and in frustration, he would combine the DNA of a male named John Cray with the alien to make the Rogue. The result was a large queen-sized Xeno similar to her in design, yet with spines coming off of its crown and tendrils hanging down by its mouth. It was shown in the comics in shades of pink or red, though we've learned from the Genocide series that the aliens may be the same color and simply tinted differently for the sake of the reader. It was docile to humans unless they were in its way or threatening it, yet it was extremely hostile towards other aliens, relentlessly hunting them down and brutally killing them. It is possible, though never stated, that the Rogue was unable to see humans as a threat due to its own inclusion of human DNA, but the experiment would have to be replicated for more study to know for sure. Somehow, possibly by pheromones, the beast would sense that a captive queen was being held nearby, and seeing her as a threat, it would escape and attempt to kill her. In the comic, and with the Prime 1 statues, the queen has a slight edge in size, but in the novel, the Rogue is larger and stronger. However, in both instances, she is faster and more cunning, allowing her to wear down the hybrid with her agility, where she is then able to land a killing blow. The first of the naturally formed alien kings would appear in 2016 from Sideshow with its Alien King maquette. This was a huge creature, slightly larger than an alien queen, with an extravagant head crest or crown, easily outdoing hers in both complexity and size. Its mouth is flanked by large pointed tusks, and it lacks the secondary arms of the queen. On its back, alongside its small dorsal spines, are two tendrils with spike tips that resemble standard adult Xenomorph tails. They have long arms and legs, a somewhat hunched over stance, and a tail that ends in what resembles two extended alien fingers, while the group of aliens gathered at its feet would suggest that it has leadership qualities like the Praetorians, a possible subclass. Created with legacy effects for the 30th anniversary of Aliens, their official title for the king is Internecivus Raptus Rex, a reference to the name given to the aliens on the Quadrilogy DVD set, which also shows up on their big chap statue Internecivus Raptus. 2 years later, in 2018, the king would appear once more, this time in the Protos games AVP The Hunt. At first glance, it would look very similar to the Sideshow version, yet there are some key differences. First off, no color is given, as the figures are unpainted, but when comparing the designs, the Protos take does seem to have a bulkier tail with larger pincer-like appendages instead of fingers on it. The tendrils on the back also sport a more beefed up look, and there are what appear to be plates of armor on its legs that the other example is lacking. Its feet and hands are also much more substantial, not like the bony ones of other aliens, but what really makes this thing terrifying is its massive size. This thing is huge, standing as tall as a queen mother, the biggest of the known Xenomorphs, coming in at around 15.2 meters or almost 50 feet tall. To put that into perspective, a standard queen is only around 4.5 meters or 15 feet tall, with adult aliens coming in around 7 feet tall. According to their Protos bio, among the largest and most terrifying biologics that an alien hive can bring to bear upon its enemies is a creature dubbed the Monstrosity or King Xenomorph. Towering several stories over its smaller brethren, this creature shakes the ground wherever it goes, causing small localized earthquakes in its wake. Near impervious to small arms fire, wounds dealt to it are regenerated almost instantly. It has been noted that when it eats its victims, its alien healing power actually speeds up, knitting even the most terrible wounds back together. At range, it can project a huge ball of acid, which if it hits even a target that is dug in, will melt them to little more than a puddle of matter. When it gets in close, it will unleash a screech, killing its initial enemies and then rush in with surprising speed for a creature of its size. Its gigantic claws and long tail are able to tear tanks and infantry to pieces in equal measure. The alien role-playing game would even include this on the possible existence of the king. Stage 7 and beyond. Not everything is known about Plagiarius praepotens and its development cycle. It has been suggested that a queen will continue to grow as her hive does, reaching Tyrannosaurus Rex proportions in Empress and Queen Mother stages that rule over several queens and several hives. There are reports of Praetorians molting into something called Palatines, and rumors of a so-called alien king. But so far, reports of such transformations are unsubstantiated and only hypothetical. What will be found next in the frontier is anyone's guess. It's possible that true or natural kings could be an advanced stage of the Praetorian or Palatine aliens, or perhaps they are a mutation of the queen herself, created to help defend and keep order in the largest of hives. It's also important to note that even though these supposed aliens are carrying the title of king, they are likely hermaphroditic, without sex, or of some other unknown reproductive ability, a questionable status held by most of the variations outside of the queens. On a side note, we almost got an alien king in what would have been the third AVP film, if the first two installments didn't underperform at the box office. Proposed for the follow-up, we would have been taken to the alien homeworld, where we would be witness to a predator team in the middle of taking on an alien king. A Xenomorph hive is a terrifying maze of death. The structure is designed to both protect and conceal aliens, as they wait to attack seemingly out of nowhere. Even if you make it through the Xeno onslaught to its inner chambers, a massive monstrosity awaits, the Praetorian, the elite royal guard, and it will stop at nothing to protect its queen. Weyland Yutani has classified the Praetorian as a Stage 6 Plagiarius praepotens, an advanced stage of the Xenomorph XX121 that also includes the Crushers and the Queen. The name is derived from the Latin word praetor, a title given by Roman government officials to elected magistrates or army commanders who would then serve as personal guards for the emperor. The alien hive defenders are usually around 10 feet tall, dark blue to black in color, and are built like a larger version of the drone, with the addition of an enlarged ornate head crest similar in look, though a bit smaller than a queen's. A possible influence to their creation may be the Royal Guard aliens, encountered on Earth in 1994's Aliens vs. Predator arcade game. They certainly have the build and their savage nature, but we wouldn't encounter a Praetorian by name until AVP for PC in 1999. This evolution has since gone on to appear in other video games, comics, and some recent novels, and even though they would vary slightly with each iteration, they are all connected in their service to the Hive. The United States Colonial Marines would have their first encounter with a Praetorian on the USCM Conestoga class cruiser Tyrargo, stationed above LV-426 in 1999's Aliens vs. Predator, where they were thought to be juvenile queens. However, the earliest Weyland Yutani documentation on the creature comes from the game's follow-up, AVP-2, taking place on LV-1201, in the form of a text log titled Loose Ends. The Praetorian is the warrior of the Hive, tough, massive, and ferocious. However, she is born quite humbly. Under the right pheromone conditions, runners and drones undergo a molting process extending over several years. During this time, the Xenomorph skin thickens and hardens. As the alien enters a mid-phase, it emits its own behavioral pheromone, which in turn enrages the Hive. Most will die during this phase. One strong enough to escape will wander the surrounding environment until her shell completes its hardening. Then, with the shell capable of reflecting small arms fire and a temper to match, she will return to assert her presence in the Hive. For 2010's Aliens vs. Predator, Specimen 6, a xenomorph drone bred by Weyland Yutani on BG-386, escapes and is able to become a Praetorian and then a queen. Its change was triggered when the Empress died, yet there are theories that suggest that it was aided by exposure to the Queen's royal jelly. After all, 6 did destroy and likely come into contact with several containers filled with the substance during its escape. In 2019, with the Alien role-playing game, royal jelly would be confirmed to be a key part in the creature's evolution. When a hive reaches a population of over 300 individuals, workers feed the Queen's chosen warriors with royal jelly until the transformation to Praetorian takes place. It is theorized that if a hive loses its queen, a Praetorian can molt into a new one. If this happened before another hive invaded, the old hive can be preserved. If not, the invaders take advantage of the leaderless Xenos and claim them for their own queen. With its massive size and horrible screams, these are one of the deadliest forms of Xenomorph XX121. While amongst other aliens, they are the leaders of the group, commanding their troops and calling for reinforcements as needed. This ability to manage resources while maintaining a goal shows an intelligence matched only by the Queen. Due to their enormous size, they are forced to forego the stalking and surprise attacks of other aliens and instead use brute force when confronting a threat. To make up for this direct approach, they are extremely well armored, with accounts of them easily repelling rounds from the M56 smart gun. Their head crests make for devastating battering rams, and their teeth, claws, and tail all tear through even the most advanced armors like paper. This is enough for anyone to keep their distance, but even at range, they are efficient killers, unleashing an acid spit capable of hitting moving targets with amazing accuracy. They are the ultimate insurance for the Queen, her last line of defense, and her replacement when the time comes. Praetorians and their queens are among the xenomorph types that can be listed as pure breed aliens. Unlike the lower castes, the queens and her protectors do not employ the DNA reflex ability, and no matter the host, will always have the same bipedal design. The only possible exception to this rule would be the Crusher, with some theorizing that they could be a Praetorian form of the Runner and Sentry type alien. But as of yet, they have not been observed molting into a queen, a key function of a Praetorian. The aliens discussed here are still Praetorians, but they are from unconfirmed encounters, or they were made to conform to things like video game mechanics or role-playing game mechanics even more so than previous examples. The most extreme case of this would be found on LV-742 for 2003's Aliens vs. Predator Extinction. Here, the queens can only be created from Praetorians, and there is no record of their implantation occurring via royal facehuggers. Instead, a standard ovomorph is morphed into a Praetorian egg, which in turn contains a Praetorian facehugger capable of producing the 6-stage alien from any host. And where other examples can only become queens, on LV-742, when a queen is already present, they are able to upgrade themselves into carriers and ravagers. The carriers are drone-like aliens, brown and pink in color, with extended dorsal tubes adapted to carry multiple facehuggers, while the ravagers, also like oversized drones, are dark and light blue in color and specialized for close combat with massive blades for hands, a possible response by the Queen to heavy weaponry. Aliens Defiance from 2016 is a confirmed encounter, however, it is a unique and never before seen take on the Praetorian. When the comic was first released, the xenomorph that was leading the other aliens was drawn as an alien drone, but with later releases, it would be switched out for a new design, with concept art calling it an egg-morphing Praetorian. Instead of having the now common large head crest, the Defiance creature's head was only slightly larger than normal. There is even a note on the concept art stating that the alien is missing the inner mouth of normal xenomorphs, which would instead be replaced with a second row of teeth and interior mouth like the Deacon. The NECA figure of the alien states that the new specimen, having evolved in isolation, has developed the ability to produce a viscous substance capable of breaking down the genetic material of heavily cocooned hosts to produce new facehugger eggs in the absence of a queen until one is born. This is in reference to egg morphine or ovomorphine, an ability first seen by Big Chap in the director's cut of 1979's Alien. The process has been used by other drones, and this is the only example of it being done by a Praetorian, but again, the creature was originally intended to be a drone. The Pred-alien that matured on Earth in 2007's AVP Requiem may also be a Praetorian. Unlike all other encountered Pred-aliens, the example seen on Earth had a head crest more like that of other Stage 6 aliens, and it would also be the only one of its kind that has been seen collecting hosts with the ability to implant them with multiple Xenomorphs. In 2015's Protoss board game, AVP The Hunt Begins, a new stage is discovered, the Royal Guard alien. They are only seen here, so it's uncertain if they'd be considered as 5th or 6th stage aliens, or perhaps something in between. And one last alien of note would be the giant crested Xenomorph seen in 2014's Alien Armageddon. They are a creation of Weyland Yutani and look very much like a supersized Praetorian. Even with all of these encounters, the RPG is quick to note that not everything is known about Plagiarius praepotens and its development cycle. It has been suggested that a queen will continue to grow as her hive does, reaching Tyrannosaurus rex proportions and Empress and Queen Mother stages that rule over several queens and several hives. There are reports of Praetorians molting into something called a Palatine, and rumors of a so-called alien king. But so far, reports of such transformations are unsubstantiated and only hypothetical. What will be found next on the frontier is anyone's guess. As for where they fit into the lineage of the alien, they have been reported to evolve from Stage 4 Xenomorphs, the drones and the runners, and also from 5th stage aliens like warriors and workers. They are in similar, yet separate lines from the Crushers, the Palatines, and other rare or unconfirmed examples like the Raven and the Chrysalis. However, only the Praetorians line continues on, evolving into Queen and Empress aliens. When fully grown, they average a height of 10 feet tall, standing 3 to 4 feet above a standard fully grown Xenomorph, which is why they seem so intimidating to the average human male who stands around 5'7". Their alien cousins, the Crushers, are around 6 feet on all fours, and even the Predator, or Yatja, a hunter of the aliens, are only 7-8 feet tall. But there is the upgrade Predator. He would make a nice matchup, standing only a foot above at 11 feet tall. The Palatine, a Queen Mother's Praetorian, and the Queen herself, along with the Ravagers and Carriers, are all 5 feet taller. And the largest of aliens, the Empress and the Queen Mother, are 5 times their size at 15 meters or around 50 feet tall. Prometheus would make $404 million worldwide on a $130 million budget, but a mixed reaction to the film would cause Fox to aim the franchise in another direction for the film's sequel. To general moviegoers, many were confused by the lack of Xenomorph aliens, especially after the film was thought to be a prequel to 1979's Alien, or at the very least exist in the same universe. As a course correction, 20th Century Fox would give us Alien Covenant, where the alien would once again be front and center. Surprisingly, even with the movie taking place on the engineer's home planet, little more is to be learned about them, and instead we are introduced to a new alien, the Neomorph, and a return, or rather an introduction, to the Xenomorph. But is the Alien Covenant Xeno a true Xenomorph? It definitely looks the part, but upon closer inspection, there are differences. So what exactly is this alien? What makes it different than known Xenomorphs, and how does it fit into the alien bloodline? Now officially from 20th Century Studios, this is a Xenomorph. When viewing the behind the scenes content for Alien Covenant, Ridley Scott along with the cast and crew all called the alien a Xenomorph. Even the Alien Covenant art book lists the creature as a Xeno. And figures from Hiya Toys, NECA, and Pop Vinyl are all labeled as Xenomorphs. Yet fans still initially called it a Protomorph, and now the official Alien role-playing game has classified this new alien variant as a Praetomorph, the name I'll use for the rest of the video. The Praetomorph was created by David, the rogue Weyland Yutani android, who's hell-bent on creating an alien capable of destroying both humanity and the engineers. His initial tampering with the pathogen would inadvertently lead to the creation of the Deacon. However, he was unaware of it as he and Shaw would already be on their way to Planet 4 as the alien tore free of its host. When the two would arrive at Planet 4, David would bombard the engineer city with the pathogen, killing everything in the immediate area, an attack that would eventually wipe the entire planet clean. It would be in this aftermath that David would perform his many bizarre experiments on the remaining engineers, the local flora and fauna, and Elizabeth Shaw using the accelerant. The Xenomorphs would be a fortunate result of the bombing for David, giving him his first specimens to work with. However, with the arrival of the Covenant's crew, human hosts would prove to create a far more successful Xenomorph. It would be from these Neos that David would mix in the engineers and humans in the form of Elizabeth Shaw to create his first Ovomorphs. Beginning with the eggs or Ovomorphs, you can start to see the differences in these Praetomorphs and their close relatives, the Xenomorph. The Ovomorph of the Praetomorph would be much larger than traditional Xenomorph eggs. They also have longer and more pronounced petals at their openings. Inside, the facehugger is very similar to the Xeno variant, if not identical. However, these huggers are able to infect their hosts in seconds before a quick removal. From this host, the resulting alien stage with the Praetomorph is not a chestburster. Instead, we see what the role-playing game refers to as the Imp, a small, frail-looking version of the creature's own adult stage. The Imp would even show an intelligence that has not been seen in a burster, when it mimicked the arm movements of David upon its birth. It should be noted that the Praetomorph is very quick to grow, with the Imp reaching adulthood faster than any chestburster. Perhaps this Imp stage was carried forward to the Runner Xenomorph, as the one seen on Fury 161 was born in a similar small adult form rather than as a traditional chestburster. With the next encounter of the Praetomorph, it is now a fully grown adult, or what the RPG refers to as a stalker. An alien about 2.7 meters tall and comfortable with moving on two legs as well as all four. They note the stalkers as the highly aggressive adult form of the Praetomorph. Classified as Plagiarius linestris, the Praetomorph is a variant breed of Xenomorph XX121. The stalker is believed to be an evolutionary dead end for the Praetomorph, as no encountered specimen has ever metamorphosed further. Unlike its phylogenetic relative, Plagiarius praepotens, the Plagiarius linestris does not appear to have a queen stage. They are bigger, more powerful, resilient, and more resistant to fire than standard Xenos. They just happen to be less intelligent and more animalistic in nature. Now, I do have to admit, I'm kind of surprised that the RPG lists the Praetomorph as a more powerful alien than the Xenomorph. I know it's a bit bigger, but it's lacking their mechanical nature. Now, Ridley Scott did say that the alien in Covenant is a Xenomorph because it came from a facehugger using human DNA. But with the expanded universe logic, the hugger carries the seed of the alien type. So a Praetomorph Ovomorph would have a Praeto facehugger that would create in its host a Praetomorph. The same can be said with Xenomorphs or Neomorphs with a slightly different life cycle. Standing side by side for comparison, the Praetomorph is taller with its longer and thinner limbs. It also uses a hybrid bipedal and four-legged stance, whereas Xenos are specialized for each stance separately, depending on their host. The back of the Praetomorph is set up differently as well, missing the Xenos' head support appendage and having smaller and bent back spines or pipes. The alien would also have exposed muscles and tendons, as it's an organic alien, whereas the Xenomorph was covered and more likely protected by its biomechanical nature. Strangely enough, Scott also said that the alien we see getting torn up and dropped while attacking the remaining crew as they attempt to leave Planet 4 will grow back together or grow new body parts, saying something about its DNA. We never see this in any Xenos in all of the films or the expanded universe, and it's not seen here with this unfortunate alien either. So without a film precedent, take it as you will. Now, if David, according to Ridley Scott, is to be the one who creates the Xenomorph strain, then one could easily see that it would only take a bit more genetic tinkering with the Praetomorph, along with adding in a mechanical nature to give us the Xenomorph, placing the Praetomorph between the Neomorph and the Xenomorph on the alien bloodline. In the Alien Covenant novel by Alan Dean Foster, he changes things up as he makes it clear that the engineers made xenomorphs well before David could have. In fact, here David finds a xenomorph ovomorph that was left by the engineers. It's the one in his lab. And from it, he starts to reverse engineer and recreate his own xenomorph. There are even dark-colored, failed Xeno test subjects standing in his lab. So in the book, there's no Praetomorph, just Neos and Xenos. To be fair, I think the film and marketing material just jumped the gun a bit calling this alien a xenomorph, with the thought that its inclusion would draw more people in to watch the movie. Prior to this, Ridley Scott kept saying that he thought that the alien was cooked and overused, so we got the Deacon and Engineers and Prometheus, and when people asked where the alien was, Fox gave it to him with Alien Covenant. It's too bad because even with some people not liking the idea of the Engineers, continuing on with their story, in my opinion, could have made for a better Prometheus 2 than the Alien Covenant that we got. So what do you guys think of the Praetomorph? I actually really like the various alien stages we've gotten from the prequels, with the Deacon, the Neomorphs, and now the Praetomorph. Xenomorph aliens are well known for their complex life cycle, yet none of the creatures from the Alien franchise would have a more complicated creation than that of the Deacon, an alien thought by some to be the origin of the species. It would only appear briefly in Prometheus and would be cut out of its only comic book appearance. Yet in my opinion, it still holds an important position on the family tree of the Xenomorph. So today, let's take a look at the evolution of the alien that would become the Deacon, while we also look at what could have been if Fox let the Fire and Stone comics use their likeness. The story of the Deacon would actually begin with another alien, the Ultramorph. A favorite design of mine, the Ultramorph was meant to show us what kind of alien would grow inside of an engineer host versus a human one. There are examples of this type of alien from Space Jockey hosts in Aliens Infestation and Aliens Apocalypse Destroying Angels. The one that would evolve into the Deacon, however, was from concept art by Carlos Huante, and it would appear during the climax in John Spaihts' early draft of Alien Engineers, where the Ultramorph would be the alien that came out of the jockey that was discovered by the Nostromo crew on the derelict vessel on LV-426. However, at this point in the production, the execs at Fox had made the decision to try to take the Xenomorph out of the film and make it more about the Engineers. A change that would bring in Damon Lindelof, who would go on to rewrite the script per their wishes. This would see the Ultramorph become the Deacon, something farther off in the lineage of the Xenomorph. For its initial design, they would look to the Beluga alien, another concept from Huante that would have emerged from an infected Holloway. This concept would be altered to become the Deacon, where its color would go from white to blue. Neil Scanlon, the creature and special effects supervisor, had this to say on the change. The quality of the Deacon skin is based on the placenta when a horse gives birth. Steve Messing managed to get it. Something between horrific and beautiful with the way he rendered the quality of the surface treatment. It had a sort of iridescent quality that we really wanted. So it was kind of beautiful and scary. Yet Carlos Huante had this to say of the change to AVP Galaxy in an interview. Why was it blue? I don't know. The illustration was blue as to emphasize the whiteness in a dark blue setting, and I was following some inspirational paintings that a contemporary Russian painter did of a man's head that Arthur had sent me from Ridley. The creatures were all supposed to be albino. They were supposed to look simple, beautiful, and ghostly, like a beluga whale in dark Arctic water. This concept is further explained by another quote from Carlos Huante in The Art of Prometheus. Once I realized that this film's timeline was taking place before the Giger-esque aesthetic would come into effect, I started homing in on a design aesthetic that I felt would complement the beautiful Giger style that saturated the first film. I wanted everything white and embryonic. Ridley and I were right in tune with each other on this. I mean, Ridley was looking at paintings that had white ghost-like creatures as reference for the Engineers. Unfortunately, the Deacon would also get a coat of paint over its flesh, but the white alien would go on to be used in Alien Covenant with the Neomorphs. Where the Ultramorph was simply a Xeno from an Engineer, a Deacon would be the result of a much different conception. It begins with Holloway ingesting a small amount of the black accelerant substance in a drink that was spiked by David. This in turn would infect Holloway's own sperm, which would grow into the trilobite in the womb of Elizabeth Shaw. Once outside, the trilobite would grow to an amazing size and would subdue and infect an engineer with what would become the Deacon. The trilobite does resemble a much larger facehugger, but I would suggest that its human reproductive beginnings are what led to the Deacon emerging with what appears to be an egg sac for possible nourishment, along with a tube running from the Deacon to the engineer. The newly discovered alien would use the point on the back of its head to cut its way free from the engineer, where it would then spill out onto the floor. Concept art would portray the Deacon standing with balance and power, whereas the one in the film was more like an infant learning how to stand for the first time. A change that was explained by Neil Scanlon. Foals are ungangly and ungraceful, but have to grow quickly. Just like giraffes and other animals born in the wild, they would have to get on their feet and ambulatory very quickly. This was a strategy for the Deacon. Now, according to the Book of Alien, little is known about the creature dubbed the Deacon due to the shape of its skull glimpsed on LV-223 in 2094. It seems clear, however, that while undeniably physically similar, the creature was not a xenomorph. Company scientists hypothesize that it is instead a byproduct of the engineered chemical known as the black goo, intended for use as a bioweapon. If we assume that the xenomorph species itself was originally deliberately bioengineered, the Deacon may be an earlier abandoned iteration of research that is ongoing. The Deacon name itself was a reference to the pointy head having a similar shape to a deacon's hat. The bottom jaw could extend while a second upper jaw would shoot out, an idea from Ridley Scott after looking at the jaws of goblin sharks. Because the alien was grown in an engineer, they would be larger than their xenomorph cousins, especially if they grew any after birth, which the expanded universe would attempt to touch on, but we'll get to that in a minute. The creature had a body frame like the Xenos except with bluish gray skin that was smooth and lacked any biomechanical features. Its head would be elongated like the Xenos. It also had no tail and had no visible eyes like the Xenos and aliens, yet it also lacked the translucent faceplate of Big Chap. We have no evidence if they have acid for blood in the film universe, but this would be addressed in the comic books. The height and weight of the newborn Deacon is also unknown, but from the scene in Prometheus, it appears to me that if it was to stand upright, it could be around the height of an engineer at around 9 feet, which would already put it taller than a full-grown Xeno, which would stand at 7 to 8 feet tall. To find out even more about the Deacon, we need to look to the Aliens Expanded Universe at the Dark Horse crossover event Fire and Stone that featured interlinking comics under the titles Aliens, Predator, AVP, and Prometheus. The Deacon was last seen on film in the year 2093, and the comics would make a return mission to LV-223 in 2219, 126 years later. The series was originally intended to showcase the Deacons, while still throwing Xenomorphs into the mix, but Fox chose to hold back on the usage of the Deacon with the Prometheus sequel still in the works. There was a cover image to Predator Fire and Stone #1 that did feature the Deacons, but it was changed before the comic was released. When we look at Fire and Stone Prometheus issue 1, we see alien monkeys that have a distinct Deacon look to them, and in the second issue, we see alien sharks that are also likely derived from the Deacon. Moving ahead to Aliens Fire and Stone issue 1, we see a mountain with peaks that look like the heads of Deacons or some other accelerant type growth. Later on in Aliens issue 4, Francis, a survivor on the moon, is desperately trying to hide from the aliens and the engineers. He ends up finding a pre-built shelter in a cave on that same mountain. Here he would perform experiments with the black substance along with studying the environment, where he would notice that the mountain itself was getting bigger. He would even say that he believes that the mountain is protecting him from the alien threats here on the moon. The last reference would appear in the finale of the series with Fire and Stone Prometheus Omega. The crew on LV-223 had been researching a signal of human origin coming from inside the mountain, and here in this issue, they find out that it's actually coming from the Prometheus ship itself. They would use the mining vessel Onager to drill into the side of the mountain, yet once inside, they would hit a river of acid, until it dawns on Eldon, their mutated synthetic, that the mountain is, in fact, alive. He notes that whatever it is must have been on Weyland's ship and has now grown up around it. Due to the accelerant, it evolved too fast, like the mutated queen that grew so large it became stuck inside the onager itself. According to Eldon, the creature would be a prisoner of its own flesh. And I think it's important to note that in this series, even the Xenomorphs that come into contact with the Black Ooze mutate to horrible and tragic results. It would seem that by Eldon's own explanation, that the original Deacon, either by its creation using the goo, or exposure to it after its birth, was affected by the black catalyst substance, causing it to grow without limits, leading to the formation of this mountain-shaped giant alien. With their ship damaged, the team is now trapped inside the Deacon mountain, so Eldon would allow himself to join, or more likely get absorbed by the Deacon, giving him a brief moment to control it enough to allow for an opening for the people to escape. So yeah, in the comics, the Deacon is a mountain, a case of the black substance continuing to mutate out of control. Now I give the writers at Dark Horse props for going outside of the box here and taking a risk with the Mountain Deacon, but in the end I think the idea just doesn't work for me. But perhaps it was the only way to sneak a Deacon back into the comic after the Fox decision, as they weren't even able to use the name Deacon in the series. Still, I can't help but laugh when thinking about it, and I would have been happier if they removed the Deacon altogether if they couldn't get Fox to allow its inclusion. Luckily for us, at the end of the comic series, the writers would explain their original intentions with the Deacons. First off, we were going to have a pet, a ringtail cat, that would likely become infected by a Deacon, giving us this adorable monstrosity. So right off, I have to pause right here. This would mean that the Deacons in the series would have evolved or somehow adapted a more Xeno-like life cycle, giving us a Deacon facehugger per se, so that it could impregnate its host and create more Deacons. The film version of the Deacon may have been capable of this, but all we know is how it was made, which again was a complex setup. I guess it's also possible that the creatures were simply exposed to the black substance, thusly turning them into Deacons, but in the final comic, the goo has a much more damaging effect even on the Xenos. The original story would have featured two different Deacon types, a human and an engineer, with this concept art image giving us examples of the human versions. Here we have some examples of different head variants, along with a curious addition, an attack tongue. On film, we didn't see if the Deacon had this hidden inside its mouth, except the twist is that it would have opened horizontally instead of opening vertically. There were even unused concepts of Deacons with translucent skulls like Big Chaps, along with other images showing bits of clear armor on the alien. Yet to me the most fascinating part of the unused concept art is this chart shown here, where we would see the height differences of an engineer Deacon and two stages of the human Deacon as compared to humans and engineers, showing us that here even the human Deacons would have been huge, starting off bigger than a human and growing up to be as tall as the 9-foot engineers. Even more impressive would have been a Deacon from an engineer, which when full grown would stand at anywhere from 10 to 12 feet tall. Just look at how impressive one would look standing next to a mocked up engineer. So how does the Deacon fit into the lineage of the Xenomorph? Well, that's a tough question. When looking at Prometheus and Alien Covenant, it looks like the first Xenotype alien that we know of was made from the black substance by the engineers, and not by David. He only modified them, although it is his strain that we see in the 4 main films. The Deacon is also derived from this substance, with a few different steps, so it does have a connection to the Xenomorph in that aspect. It would appear to me that the accelerant will tend towards certain traits when used. Traits like elongated skulls, similar skin types, the structure and layout of the skeleton, along with a trademark set of extra extendable jaws. Some of these characteristics were even showing up in Fifield, even more so in the concept images. In my opinion, this puts the Deacon in the early part of the family tree of the Xenomorph, although it's on a side branch in between the alien from the Altar mural and the Proto-Xenomorph from Alien Covenant. As is with any species, creating the next generation is always of the utmost importance. This drive is supremely evident in the alien Xenomorph variants, creatures with an impressive, if not horrific, life cycle and method of procreation. At the top of this breeding hierarchy sits the Queen, the most important alien in the Hive. Safeguarding her would be the Queen's Royal Guard, a group of highly specialized aliens that will give their lives ensuring the survival of the Queen. So for today, let's take a look at this class of matriarch defenders as we explore the Alien Queen's Royal Guard. Now, as far as the films are concerned, or more specifically aliens, an alien Hive and her queen are defended by warrior class Xenomorphs. The only other currently known aliens in this canon that could be in the Hive are the queen, drone, and runner Xenomorphs. The drones and runners would also defend the Hive with their lives, but the main defense for the Hive and its queen are to be the warrior or soldier class aliens. Looking to the expanded Alien and AVP universes, there is an entire group of Xenomorphs that either specialize in protecting the Hive or can be counted on to effectively do so when under attack. First up is the Sentry. Also called a Defender, Sentries are usually created in well-established hives that are successfully obtaining enough hosts to continue to grow. They are the mature stage of the Runner or Scout Xenomorph encountered on Fury 161. Runners are already fast and nimble, but the Sentry gains specialized gripping hands and feet that allow them to scale walls and ceilings with greater efficiency than other aliens. They grow dorsal spines on their backs and a rigid and armored carapace, making them capable Hive defenders. When a Hive's population exceeds 300 aliens, Praetorians are created. This happens when the Queen chooses certain soldier aliens who are then exposed to or fed royal jelly, changing them into Praetorians. Now standing at 2 times the height of an adult alien and bearing an enormous, fully developed queen-like head crest, they are a key part of the Queen's Royal Guard. In fact, if the Queen is killed or dies unexpectedly, a Praetorian can molt and become a new queen. Next up is the Crusher alien, also called the Charger. These aliens are basically a Praetorian version of the Sentry, as they are made when the Queen decides to expose a Sentry to royal jelly while workers force feed it raw metals. It then cocoons itself and becomes a Crusher. They can get up to 3 meters tall at the shoulder, and in most cases are only found in long established hives. Helpful to the Hive, they are aggressive tanks, easily crushing the ranks of any Hive invaders. Our next defender comes to us in the form of the Royal Guard aliens. These are a rarely seen alien, and because of that, little is known of them. There are those that believe that they are the most powerful of all the strains of Xenomorph. A final evolution of the life cycle, smarter and more cunning than your standard alien. A creature much larger than soldier aliens, with head crests that flare out like a queen's. However, there are also some that say that the Royal Guard is not its own strain of Xeno, and is instead more likely to be a stage or phase in between a drone and a Praetorian. Another rarely seen Xenomorph is the Ravager, an alien thought to be an evolved Praetorian. When a Hive is threatened with heavy arms, a queen will call on a Praetorian to grow into a Ravager. It's not known if they do so by consuming royal jelly, but we do know that some kind of cocooning process is involved for them to become Ravagers. They are bluish in tone, close to a queen in height, and are extremely durable with some resistance to fire. Ravagers are known for their deadly claws, blades that supposedly no metal can withstand. Even more impressive are the Colossal Ravagers. While the process to become colossal for this alien is unknown, the improved Ravager has armor that is only matched by the War Empress. Skilled as both an offensive and defensive creature, a Ravager is one of the few aliens that can take down a queen. A special adaptation that only occurs in a Queen Mother's Hive is the Palatine, also called the Royal or Elite Guards. The Palatine is like a drone that's as big as a standard queen. These unique aliens are grown in 5 large eggs or pods that surround the Queen Mother. On Xenomorph Prime, they were the last defense of the Queen Mother, were strong enough to take out a power loader, and were only called into action when the Queen Mother was threatened. A terrifying alien indeed, an elite guard for an elite queen. Possibly only a rumor or a mislabeled Praetorian or Ravager is the Alien King. This is a huge alien in between a Praetorian and a queen in size. Its head crest is amazing, and it's bigger and more ornate than a queen's. It's lacking her extra arms, yet has 2 extra tail-like appendages on its back. It's bulky and looks to be physically superior to its female counterpart. Stories say that they can spit acid, can rip through a tank's armor with their claws, and they may even be able to heal themselves when they feed. A dangerous alien to see in a hive if they do indeed exist. Surprisingly, In some rare circumstances, subordinate queens can be defenders of a hive or group of hives. Though usually competing queens will kill each other, in some cases an empress or a dominant queen will allow others to exist. When this happens, the lesser queen will defend the greater with her life. But perhaps the most dangerous of all hive defenders is the War Empress. Only appearing in the largest of hives or groups of hives, the War Empress is not driven by the need to procreate like other aliens. Instead, the War Empress, like the Ravagers, are created when a hive goes to war. An offensive powerhouse, the War Empress would also be a hive's greatest defense. Even larger than an Empress and 70% more durable, she's even capable of sending her troops into a battle frenzy, further boosting a hive's defenses. Now, to be fair, when attacked, every alien in the hive becomes a hive defender. But it's these more specialized aliens that make the job of taking on a hive such a daunting task. The Xenomorph is one amazingly adaptable creature. When we're first introduced to Big Chap, the original alien horror, a sleek, powerful, and deadly machine. Next in the franchise, we see the aliens en masse, sporting a slightly updated design, along with their matriarch, the Alien Queen. With the third installment to the Alien series, we meet the Runner Alien, a fresh take on an old nightmare. In the first two Alien movies, the hosts for the creatures were human. Without seeing a Xenomorph from a non-human host, we can only guess just how far the alien would go in order to incorporate traits of its host. It wouldn't be until the Xenomorph encounter on Fury 161 that we'd see an alien birth from an animal host. The design of this alien may have been new, but the idea of an alien that didn't stand on two legs was not a new one. We can go all the way back to an article in the official Alien movie magazine in which Ridley Scott says, and I quote, "The next generation takes on characteristics of whatever form it landed on." The article then says that this means that the alien may not always be a biped. It could conceivably be a combination of the original facehugger and whatever host it uses. The Dark Horse comic book Aliens Rogue gives us the term DNA reflex to describe the process that the xenomorph embryo undergoes while inside the host subject. An important part of this reflex was the stance of the host, as the aliens always seem to mimic this trait, be it walking on 2 or 4 legs. This alien, or the Dragon as it was known to the prisoners of Fury 161, showed considerably different motives and hunting techniques than the xenomorph encountered by the Nostromo crew, or the multiple specimens confronted by the Colonial Marines on LV-426. The first meeting featured a smooth domed alien that used stealth and ambush tactics in order to hunt its prey. Here, the alien would even start to create a hive area where it was thought to be egg morphing captured crew members. In the second encounter, the aliens were heavily influenced by their queen, falling into a well-defined order. With the third encounter, the specimen is solitary at first, until it learns that Ripley is carrying an alien queen. The xenomorph would then choose to not harm Ripley, showing that it had the instinct to protect even the host of its own species. As for the hunting tactics of the runner, it was similar to the Nostromo alien in that it used stealth tactics. However, perhaps driven by a need to protect its upcoming queen, the alien was insanely aggressive as it killed anyone it could find, choosing not to take any prisoners. It is possible that the alien would begin to take prisoners for hosts once the new queen is established, and that this alien was even taking people out in order to make a safe area for the queen, but this situation never presents itself. The runner alien, as seen in Alien 3, has a brown or almost rust-colored hue to its exoskeleton. It seems to move faster than its bipedal alien brethren, even being able to stick to walls and ceilings very easily. This alien was able to stand upright, rivaling the size of the bipedal aliens. Strangely enough, this runner alien was missing a major part to its life cycle, the chestburster stage. The Weyland Yutani report states that the company had no data to suggest that the runner-type xenomorph that Ellen Ripley encountered lacked the chestburster form, or if that form was just unseen. They do believe, however, that the information on the encounter suggests that the alien embryo employs gene targeting to introduce point mutation, allowing for the creature to borrow from and adopt its host DNA in order to restructure its own form. When we see the birth from the Xeno, be it from the dog or from the ox in the novelization or the Alien 3 assembly cut, the alien enters the world in its normal adult form, only much smaller. There have been many theories as to why this alien did not exist in the host in the chestburster form. First off, it's possible that the runner simply has no chestburster form and grows from the embryo into this young alien. Or it could be that because the host died before birth, that this alien didn't develop correctly and simply couldn't get out in chestburster form and had to wait until growing larger to be able to exit. Beyond the obvious difference in stance of the runner alien, another big change was the lack of dorsal tubing. This was most likely done for practical reasons, as with this new quad stance, the alien's head would normally sit above the back, right where the dorsal tubes would be, not allowing for movement of the head. H.R. Giger did note that he didn't like the tubes in the original artwork and film, and that the newer alien with a longer ribcage and no dorsal tubes was a better and much sleeker look. The only drawback was that the film originally had H.R. Giger attached to help design this runner, only to go with ADI instead to finish the concept. This end product lacked the biomechanical look of the first alien, looking more organic than its previous iterations. Another new trait of the runner alien is its ability to spit acid blood. We would see this ability in the clone Xenomorphs of Alien Resurrection and again in the Aliens Extended Universe. Much of the online information for the runner aliens show them as being weaker and less durable than other Xenos from the earlier movies, but they list the AVP2 video game as a reference for this, so I wouldn't put much stock into that. To me, the runner was able to lift up people and rip them apart just as easily as Big Chap. We never saw it hit with any weapons fire to test its durability, but it should be noted that the previous aliens feared fire for good reason, whereas the runner survived molten lead, albeit we only see it live for a few moments afterwards when it's doused with water and explodes. To me, Alien 3, especially the assembly cut, is a good movie, but it just doesn't hold up as well as Alien and Aliens. Yet the bright spot of this film was the introduction of the runner alien. This would add even more adaptability to the species, making them even deadlier and allowing for endless variations. Aliens Genocide is one of the more memorable Dark Horse comic books from the Aliens Extended Universe, and it's easy to see why. Bright red aliens. I picked up these comics back when they were first released, and at that point I had only seen your standard black or brownish colored alien. With all the Xenos encountered so far, one thing is for sure. They can adapt to almost any host, any environment, or any situation. Color variants would seem logical to me. So today, let's take a look at the origins of the red Xenomorph aliens. First off, it's important to point out that these aliens most likely aren't as red as they look in the comics. What's that, you say? Then why color them that way in the comic? Well, if you look to the bug hunt section at the end of the comics, which is basically a questions to the editor section, Barbara Kessel answers a question about the alien's red color, and this is her response. In reality, the aliens are probably close to the same color. They just smell different or something. But this is comics, and we need to be able to clue in the readers. Tell you what, if your biology studies ever take you to the alien homeworld, write us and let us know what color they appear to be. The Red Queen or Red Queen Mother is created following the events of Aliens Earth War. The Queen Mother alien from Xenomorph Prime was taken and killed on Earth in order to take out most of the invading aliens there. In her absence on the homeworld, some royal guards have run off to make a new hive, after they deem the old one unclean after the humans took their last queen. They build a small hive and take an egg most likely containing a queen chestburster. We see no host, nor do we see the chestburster from the egg, so we don't know the exact process of the Red Queen's origin. It is noted in the comic though that this method of birthing the Red Queen is different from the traditional ways. It looks like the standard queen or queen mother is made from what appears to be queen morphine, where a royal elite guard alien is changed into a queen using the royal jelly contained in the ring of Sax. She does appear almost reptilian in an early shot after her birth in the comics, yet when asked about this in the bug hunt section, if she's a mutated queen or what the heck's up with that picture, the editor simply responds yep, which I'm betting is sarcastic because the editor does go on to mention later that there are some color and art errors in these issues. The aliens as illustrated in the comic all have the smooth carapace domed head of the Big Chap alien from the first film, versus the exposed head of the aliens from the second movie. Aside from a color or smell difference, these aliens seem to be just like their darker cousins. The red aliens are eventually killed off when the humans nuke their hive in order to create confusion on the planet so that they can infiltrate the other alien hive. Now these red aliens did fight with the other darker aliens in the comic story, and it has been noted that queens will kill other competing queens, but in some cases they will allow others to exist if they don't encroach on their territory. I have to wonder if there weren't competing queens and the red aliens were just a new strain hatched from the same normal looking queen, a mutation of color perhaps, would she still have them killed? Unfortunately, we have no cases of such alien color changing or evolution in any Weyland Yutani files, so we just don't know. However, in the Alien Covenant novel, a proto-xenomorph does fight with a neomorph and kill it, so we do have another instance of different species of aliens fighting. So what do you guys think of these red aliens? I personally love them. If you could make up different attributes that the red aliens would have over other aliens, what would they be? Maybe a different colored acid blood, maybe different heat tolerances. In nature here on Earth, bright colored animals tend to have poison in many instances, almost as a warning. So could these guys be poisonous? Or maybe they just shoot acid like other aliens in the extended universe. I'd love to hear what you guys could come up with as attributes for the red aliens, or any other colors if you feel so inclined. Recently I've done a bunch of videos covering different types of aliens, specifically ones of different color types. We've seen the translucent alien, the albino alien drones, your standard black, blue, and brown aliens, the red genocide aliens, and then back to a mix of translucent and albino with the neomorph. Yet there's another oddly colored xenomorph out there from the extended universe, one with a yellow and sometimes even golden color, but it's not from the comics. Instead, this alien variant comes to us by way of the video game Aliens vs. Predator Extinction. Today, I want to take a closer look at the K-series of aliens. Weyland Yutani would luckily stumble across a strain of xenomorph trapped underground during mining operations on LV-742. These aliens would be studied and later genetically modified by Dr. Samuel Kadensky, along with Weyland Yutani bioweapons executive Charles Gold. The company had long sought after live xenomorph specimens, and with the K-series, that dream had finally been realized. All throughout this franchise, we've heard about the company's goal to obtain and study the xenomorph. Yet here, not only does the company finally have their specimens, but they have taken their studies a step further by genetically manipulating the alien in order to try to create their own breed to use as a bioweapon. We have no information as to how exactly these K-series aliens were modified from their original alien cousins, and it's believed that their namesake, K-series, is in reference to Dr. Kadensky himself. The aliens are shown to be bright yellow in the artwork of Aliens vs. Predator Extinction, yet in the actual gameplay, they have a more golden toned appearance to them. Beyond this color difference, no other changes are noted in the game. These yellow aliens would end up acting in the same manner as their relatives, in that once they were able to break free of their human captors, they would create a hive and then give birth to a yellow alien queen. She would then go on to produce eggs like a standard alien queen until the unique species was eventually wiped out by the original competing hive of aliens. It should be noted that although these aliens seem similar to the red xenomorphs from the Genocide comics, the K-series were created by Weyland Yutani, whereas the red Genocide aliens were a natural mutation. In the Genocide comic, the standard darker aliens fought with the red Xenos, seeing them as competition. The same behavior was seen in Extinction, where the original alien strain tries to destroy all of the yellow K-series aliens. It's noted in the game that the original strain of aliens see the K-series not only as competition for hosts and for space, but they see the strain as a threat to the species, fearing that they will have their makeup altered if they combine with this human-made alien. The yellow alien strain must have had some alterations that were detrimental, as the creatures were bred to be a bioweapon, yet unfortunately they could not survive a fight with the original alien strain. Perhaps it's due to these aliens being bred in captivity, but that's never mentioned in the game. It's too bad that this breed of alien was only used in a video game and not in a comic book. That way we could have possibly had more backstory to the K-series. I'm curious to know if the yellow coloring was intentional or merely a side effect. The aliens seem to be almost identical except in color and fighting prowess, so just what did the company scientists attempt to alter here? If you were a Weyland scientist working on a new strain of alien, what would be your modifications? What color would you make this Xeno so that you could tell it apart from other aliens? Would they be bigger, smaller, runners, drones? There are so many options, and I'd love to hear all of your ideas down in the comments. In the year of 2142, Weyland Yutani was able to fulfill a long-term goal when they finally gained access to the perfect organism, otherwise known as Xenomorph XX121, which was then taken to the Renaissance space station, where company scientists were able to use it to create a new variant of the alien that we'll refer to as the Renaissance or Romulus strain of the Xenomorph. Unfortunately, the alien that they recovered, known affectionately to fans as Big Chap, wasn't dead. It was just damaged and in stasis, and when it finally awoke, its fury and subsequent death would doom the facility. Even so, they were able to study and analyze the creature as it slept, and from its DNA, they were able to bioengineer and print their own facehuggers, giving them access to more aliens. According to James Cameron, the aliens in his film are the same thing as the ones from Alien, except with a slightly changed design, but a lot of the expanded universe material see the two as separate stages of the Xenomorph, with the RPG classifying the examples from Alien and Alien 3 as 4th stage drones, and Cameron's creatures as 5th stage warriors. The ones from Romulus were all drones, either because they were younger or because they were derived from Big Chap, and they had built a rather large hive, but there was no evidence of ovomorphing or a queen to reproduce on their own. The facehugger stage of the strain had a darker skin color than their pale cousins, barbed fingers, and a stinger-like appendage on their tails that are held up like a scorpion when threatened. They were also noted by Andy to be able to hunt using sound and heat signatures, which may or may not be true of other facehuggers. The Romulus chestburster had arms that were more developed than the Nostromo example, like the ones seen by the Colonial Marines on LV-426, though they remain curled up at the creature's sides and may not have been usable yet. Their dome and faceplate were fuller and bulged out when compared to other bursters, and it seemed like it had a hard time getting out of Navarro's chest, only tearing open an exit at first, and then slowly pushing out and falling over. The LA Times Weekly would ask Shane Mahan, a special effects artist and co-founder of Legacy Effects who worked on the film, about paying homage to the original Alien while also breaking new ground, and he said, "We really wanted to pay tribute to Giger's paintings and his artwork. We also wanted the Xenomorph to feel like an offspring of the Queen, even though in the context of the chronological order of the films, this falls between Alien and Aliens. You haven't technically seen the Queen yet, but if you look at the two together, there's a familiar trait of the Queen in our Xenomorph, in the very narrow torso. The tails have always had a bony structure to them, but that's also another artifact of the Queen. The tail is very queen-like. Fede had a lot of ideas about the skin's surface. He wanted it to be very rough and sharp. His description was that even if you ran your hand along it or if it bumped up against you, it would cut your skin. So there's a lot of ridges and sharp points to it, and the overall feeling is just very dangerous. We wanted this film to feel organically new, but to also feel familiar. I think when people think of the original film, the classic thing is the traditional long head that was created, and certainly the silver teeth, and the subliminal skull, which had been gone for a while from the Xenos for some of the films. We wanted to bring some of those elements back, but play with the surface texture so it wasn't just shiny and smooth. We didn't want it to just feel like electrical tubing, housing, and mechanical parts. The biomechanical part was sort of reduced to just purely bio at this point. Now I should mention that I don't think that Shane meant that the Romulus strain of the Xenomorph is not biomechanical, like David's Praetomorph. And instead, he meant that the mechanical features are still there, like they were with Big Chap, but they're all covered in a more organic looking skin or exoskeleton. Aside from the differences that were mentioned in the article, I'd add that the dorsal pipes on the back of the Romulus aliens are a bit shorter than the ones seen on other creatures, and that the alien on the Nostromo used a plantigrade stance, whereas the Romulus versions have a digitigrade stance. They also have thinner arms and legs, a result of modern suit making techniques. A newly discovered stage, a Xenomorph cocoon, was found on the Renaissance station where the chestburster had spun or grown into a cocoon to evolve into its adult stage. Something similar was seen in the video game Aliens vs. Predator Extinction, though it's not yet known if the cocoon stage is a feature of all aliens that has remained hidden until now, or if it's exclusive to the Renaissance strain. The alien that would become known as the Scorched alien was truly unique, as it would suffer damage when it was attacked in its cocoon with a taser baton, leaving the taser part in its head, causing severe pain and damage, like its warped and rippled dome and cracked faceplate, similar to the one seen on the Raven Xenomorph from Aliens Colonial Marines. It also had a mouth that went farther back than other aliens with extra tendons or connective tissue, but I'm not sure if this was from the attack, or if the alien may have also been stunted in its development, as it may have been forced to exit the cocoon prematurely. The Alien RPG hints that creatures like the Xenomorph that were created by the pathogen will live fast and burn out quickly due to their sped up metabolisms. The offspring creature grew incredibly fast, and perhaps the Renaissance aliens would have encountered a similar fate if they weren't all destroyed. But it wouldn't be a total loss for the company, as they were able to unlock the origin of the mysterious engineer pathogen, when they found out that it's the same chemical that the facehuggers inject into their hosts.